السابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار والذين اتبعوهم بإحسان.
The scholars, as we mentioned, they have said these days, many people, they talk and talk and talk and talk, and they can talk without stopping forever. They can talk and talk for days and weeks and months, especially these days now with all of the platforms that are available. A person can open up his YouTube channel, open up a podcast and whatever these things are, and he can sit there on a daily basis talking and talking and talking. YouTube videos and YouTube videos and YouTube videos and other platforms, whatever the platforms are, Facebook, and you can talk and talk and talk. And it may well end up wasting a great deal of time for a person following that and reading all of that. That's why we mentioned in the first volume of this book, we came across that dua when the Messenger used to make dua, asking Allah for not just knowledge, but what type of knowledge? Exactly. Allah said in the Quran, قُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. Allah commanded the Messenger to make dua for knowledge, for an increase in knowledge. Telling him, say, O Muhammad, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. But what type of knowledge? The Messenger used to make dua to be blessed with al-ilm an-nafi'. And what is that? How do you define what al-ilm an-nafi' is? How can you distinguish? How can you say this book is ilm nafi', this one is not? This YouTube video is ilm nafi', this one is not. This article is nafi', this one is not. This speaker is nafi'. How can you distinguish? The basic method of distinguishing is, what is it that is going to bring you closer to Allah, is going to bring you closer to Allah in your worship, in your obedience, bring you closer to that paradise of Allah, to the pleasure of Allah. That's ilm nafi'. As for affairs that do not bring you closer to Allah, do not give you any more subservience, any more obedience to Allah, any more submission to Allah, it is just general knowledge of whatever the affair is, then that isn't ilm nafi'. There are many things, in fact, which are known as ilm, which yadur, knowledge that harms you, does not benefit you. This is all mentioned in the books of the scholars when they talk about knowledge. Sheikh al-Uthaymeen talked about it a lot. There are types of knowledge, not only are they not really beneficial, they are actually harmful. Ilm which yadur, which harms a person. And that is, of course, the knowledge which ends up perhaps distracting you away from the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah, or maybe bringing about ideas to you that contradict or go against the Quran and the Sunnah, or taking you down a pathway that a believer should not be going down towards. That is harmful knowledge then, to have those affairs. And that's why often you see it, when the scholars are asked questions, sometimes some of those questions, the scholars recognize that this is not ilm nafi'. That the question that they are being asked, it doesn't have any beneficial knowledge in it. Me giving the answer to that question isn't beneficial knowledge to this person. Sometimes they recognize that this question the person is asking, it is not a beneficial question. The knowledge of this, if I give him an answer to it, isn't ilm nafi'. So then what do the scholars do? You hear it all the time. They answer those questions by telling them straight out that this is not something that you need to be worried about or putting your time into. This is not something that is of benefit to you. How often do you hear it when you look at the fatwas and recordings of scholars? They'll say, this doesn't matter. Why are you bothered about this? Why are you wasting your time on this? Why are you asking about this? Because they recognize that question isn't ilm nafi'. What's the point of you asking me that? How is that going to get you closer to Allah, knowing the answer to this question? So a person should think, this book, this lecture, this YouTube, whatever it is, what you're spending your time on, is this ilm nafi'? Is it beneficial knowledge? Meaning, is it knowledge that is going to get me closer to Allah? I read this whole book. Is this particular book ilm nafi', that after reading it, it's going to get me closer to Allah? It's going to do something for my iman. It's going to increase me in my subservience and obedience to Allah. If so, excellent. That is ilm nafi'. But if it is something hundreds of pages, and you read it all, 500 pages, 600 pages, and at the end of it all, there was nothing in that for your heart. There was nothing in that for your heart. It was just other affairs and other issues and whatever it might be. It is not ilm nafi' that brought you closer to Allah in any way by knowing this. And that's the other definition of it. Ilm nafi' compared to ilm which harms. The knowledge which is harmful or of no use is the type of knowledge that at the end of it, can you say that this knowledge has now benefited me in some way in your religion? Has it benefited me in my religion to know that, whatever that is? Has it benefited me that I've read this book or I've listened to this YouTube or watched this video? After it, have I benefited from that? Has that done something for my heart? Has that done something for my religion? If it hasn't, then what have you spent your 5 minutes on watching that video for? What have you spent your hour reading that book for then? Why have you spent an hour reading that article online for then? Why have you done that if at the end of it there's nothing in your heart for that, there's no impact, there's nothing this article does for you in your iman, in your obedience, in your closeness to Allah, then it's getting into the realms of being knowledge that is not beneficial. This is why the Messenger used to make dua after Allah commanded him, seek an increase in knowledge. The Messenger used to make dua for ilm nafi', the beneficial knowledge. Not just any knowledge, beneficial knowledge. And notice Allah commanded the Messenger to seek an increase in knowledge. قُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِ عِلْمًا. If there was something more noble and more virtuous than knowledge, then Allah would have commanded His Messenger to make dua for that thing, whatever it is. If there was something more virtuous, more noble than knowledge, then in the Quran, when that ayah comes, Allah would have mentioned and say, oh Allah, increase me in so and so, whatever the other thing is. But there is nothing else. There is nothing else more noble and more virtuous than knowledge. And that's why Allah mentioned that. قُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. Oh my Lord, increase me in knowledge. As some of the scholars have said, the greatest rizq a person can be given is the rizq, not of money and food, but the rizq of knowledge. That is the greatest rizq, sustenance and provisions that a person can be given from all of the affairs.